water pressure backup, no sump pump failure. So I'm just asking to ask yourselves, if a father of a 3-year-old, one on the way, if $800 is a lot of money, you know, for our utility bill going from $350 to $1150 with no explanation, other than it rained a lot. I understand maybe your utility electric bill going up in the summer when the AC has to kick on, but you're using that electricity. Or in the winter when you have to kick on your heat a little bit more. You're using that electricity. We don't use rainwater. I didn't find that as an acceptable explanation. And I don't have an explanation right now. Dustin said they couldn't keep track of it. So much water comes in. It had an old reader, which he has here. He installed a new one. So my hypothesis, if I had to guess, would be something with the reader. Something my wife and I can't control. We've never missed a utility payment. I've never had a lien against me or anything. We've paid on time. We do automatic withdrawal, and I've never challenged anything. And I wouldn't challenge it if it was explained to me how it happened. Once I first saw it, made the proper calls, talked to Dustin, I was like, explain it, and I'll pay it. I really did. I said, leak adjustment, whatever I gotta do, we'll pay it. But nothing could be explained to me, so that's why I'm here. Not because I'm trying to get out of something, because I'm not willing to spend $800 on something that I haven't had an explanation of. That, to me, is just not acceptable. If there's an explanation, something that is diagnostically determined that this is what caused it, and it's my wife and I's fault somehow from a leak, which we had no leaks, we had to check. But if somehow that's the case, we'll be willing to pay it, but it's not the case. So it's just maybe a bad reading, I don't know, but it's unexplainable. 48,000 extra gallons of usage, 60,000 gallons of usage was our bill.
Have you filed a leak adjustment?
We don't have a leak.
With the village?
I got the form, but as I told him, I'm not gonna fill out the form, so I don't have a leak.
Right.
You had a plumber come out, check and
Yes.
say.
We got the guy that installed the water pressure. He said he'd be willing to meet anyone there at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Where does the water pressure eject?
On the side, the west side of my house.
Does it go,
It's not tapped into the other line of sump pump. It's its own separate line.
and it just comes straight out of the house?
If it ever does work, it would, yes. And no road,
Right.
never has happened. I mean, and like I said, that would be 10 extra thousand gallons a week.
How many feet does it come off the house?
About 3 or 4.
So it just, okay. So I mean, that's how mine did, just for the panel, that's how mine does. And mine kicked on one time for about an hour, and we replaced the sump pump, and it throws out a ton of water, but all the landscaping where that kicked out was washed out. I mean, it comes out high pressure. And you want it to kick out just outside your house so you know it's on.
Right, exactly, so you can hear it. In our sump pump, you can come to my house right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think our water table's so low, or high, I'm sorry, that our sump pump constantly runs, but it's never failed. We have a top-of-the-line sump pump that I installed 3 years ago, because I didn't want our basement to ever flood. And this
I'm the
thing,
same way.
yeah, and you just hear constantly throughout the night, which is good. Even when the power went out recently, if that water pressure kicked on, that water backup pressure kicked on during the power, but it wasn't raining when the power went out, it was lightning, because my brother's an electrician in town, I know the cause of that power outage. If that water pressure did kick on, you're telling me 48,000 came out in 10 minutes, our power was out? It's just, to me, it's not plausible. So, like I said, if there's an explanation to it, if there's a diagnostic report that shows me this is exactly how you're using 48,000 extra gallons in a 4-week period, I would pay it. I really would. I wouldn't even be here. But we have no explanation for it. There's nothing that can be determined where this usage came from.
So for you guys up here, Dustin printed off this, see this sheet, it talks about the meters. And from what they say, Dustin, correct me if I'm wrong, is the meters can never read high.
Never.
They can
If they're
only read
installed
low.
correctly in the right units, there's a Model 25 on a Model 25 meter, which I did confirm that when he called me. I went over to his house and checked that, and he's correct, there was no leak. So everything was right. I did change the top because I told Jimmy that if I put the new top on and something else happens in the future, we could track it with our computer. You get 40 days of usage hour by hour. And since we had the old unit, I went ahead and put the new one on. But the old unit's right here. I brought it in tonight.
And so we don't, since then, you've been tracking it hour to hour, there's no difference or spikes?
I haven't tracked
in
hour to
usage?
hour yet, and I can read that for him later if he'd like that. But when I went over there, when I switched them out, he'd only used 3,000, I think it was like 600 gallons in like a month.
He'd used his normal,
He was below his normal.
Below.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, this is just adding
You
up.
had
This
everything
isn't-
off.
Yeah, this isn't making sense. So, like I said, with no leak, no water pressure backup that's ever kicked on, I don't have an explanation. like I said, I would ask you guys, ask yourself, if you wouldn't be staying around that, you know, and that's all. And as a government affairs director for the Illinois Association of Realtors, I would hate to have to tell my members who sell homes here in Chatham and Springfield, like, hey, just so you know, your clients that might buy a home in Chatham might have an extra $800 because it rains. That was the explanation I got from the person I called until it rained a lot.
The only thing, I mean, it could be the water, but like I said, you would know.
Yeah, you would see 48 extra thousand gallons.
You
in my
would
yard.
see it wherever the,
And he went by my yard, and he knows I don't water my yard. I probably should, but I don't water my yard. You know, I've never been that person. I cut it, fertilize it, but I don't water my yard.
so, I mean, what it really boils down to for us is, I think we can make an exception to anybody that comes before us. But if the village finds it, it's not up to us to find if there is a leak. So we could also ask for the plumber to come back or a statement.
Oh, and he already said there was no leak. He checked it.
Right, but, so they're trying to get out of, the water department, because we are growing, is trying to get out of the leak business, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But even if
And
they,
Dustin's a friend of mine. I appreciate his help.
Yeah.
so.
even if they find no leak, the water meter can't read more. It doesn't mean that we can't make exceptions or whatever we may do. But we have to kind of come collectively as what kind of solution. But we do need, I think for us to take action or for us to make recommendations, we need that leak adjustment form
Okay.
for us to act. It doesn't mean, I even think it said, it doesn't even necessarily mean that there is an active leak.
Okay. I just interpreted it that way. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't have a leak, so why would I fill out a leak?
And even indicate that on the form,
Okay.
that you had a plumber check, there's no leak.
Is there a separate, I mean, do we run into these issues, like if there was a water leak and the leak must have caused water usage?
If you go to page 16, it actually explains that there is no leak and we don't know where the water went. There's actually a policy in there that he would fall under, so.
Yeah.
Pat wanted to print that out for you guys.
We had an issue several months ago, and someone was being charged more. The issue with the meter was that it was two different parts.
Correct.
So it wasn't the meter itself, it was that there was a meter in a different part.
And then we have a formula to go back, and we gave her 2 years, remember, we went back 2 years,
Right.
which is what our policy states, and returned the money.
Whereas
Well-
like you said, with this case, is the same parts.
Even the-
Correct.
Even the one lady that just came before us, she had similar, but hers was, exiting, her water backup and her sump are the same line, so she couldn't tell that her water backup hadn't been on, and she was gone for like 2 months during that
Yeah.
time.
Correct.
But I think we did give her the adjustment.
I believe we did, Brett.
And to be
Yeah.
completely honest, once I heard water pressure backup, I thought, oh, that could be it. They're probably right.
Cause
Oh,
they'll
no,
throw
when I
out,
checked my line,
depending on what size one you got, they'll throw out
48,000 gallons.
They'll throw out 4,000 an hour,
Yeah, and with the-
but
Or some.
you would notice it.
Yeah, and our sump was never
Yeah.
failed.
Yeah.
So
You,
it-
you
it's
would
never been
definitely
wrong.
notice it because the size of your house, I mean.
Yeah.
So it's on page, what, Dustin, 16?
Well, yeah, if you look back, there's a paragraph there. It'll say, go to subparagraph A, which
Yep.
Yeah.
there isn't an A, but I guess there's a typo, but right above the B there.
Yep.
And we went through it today, and he meets all these.
So we could give them, so what happens here, Dan, they can, if they apply for this water leakage, portion, we can give them a one-time, it's once every 3 years, 2 years?
It's 3 years.
Once every 3 years. So if this happened again next year, we wouldn't be able to do anything.
Yeah, and I would hate to try to figure out what's going on. If
Right.
it ever happens again, but like he said, the last reading, I was under my usage, so.
Right,
Just stuff's not adding up to me.
and you're up hourly now, and people that are up on hourly, do we monitor that yet, or if there's an extreme spike?
Yeah, so what would happen is if there's a spike, like they sent us out, or sent our guys out to Jimmy's house before, his bill got there. But they went up, they said he was watering, I think there was a sprinkler, and I noticed you weren't watering, but they saw the sprinkler and wrote watering.
The person I call it, that spoke to at the village, so there's a note, I've been watered. And I said, I have never watered my yard ever. That's sprinkler that's not even connected, and it's for my wife's plants. And we literally, my daughter fills it up and dumps a pitcher for 40 seconds on each plant. And that is our water. I've never watered my yard, never put a sprinkler in. I was like, so if your note, I asked her who makes those notes. She said, I can't tell you. I said,
It's just our guys that went out. So they went out,
I said, why is there a note on the hundred?
and so he got his bill and it was high, and then he called me and I went out, and that's when we started discussing it. But the hour by hour, I could go read that now, we don't have a week's worth, but he's not ahead, so in 3 weeks, if he's high again, they'll send our crews out, we'll look at it, we'll put a note on his door and go from there.
And we had one, I brought it here, we had a bill that had 12,800 in usage, I believe in December of 2718 to 11519, that's our highest usage we've ever had in 6 years, 12,100. And imagine cold, my daughter likes bath time, probably had something to do with a lot of bath time or something.
And having another one, they're probably gonna go up to 15,000.
Yeah, and I'm expecting
That's fine.
not 60, not 60,000.
60 was the,
My usage was 59,000.
yeah.
Any questions or any comments or thoughts?
Obviously, he meets all the criteria.
So we're okay, consensus, as long as we get the form.
Yeah, I will get that form tomorrow.
File the form and then we'll,
I'll drop it off
make a
tomorrow.
recommendation to the board to give you this, the one-time.
And I already told, and I appreciated who I finally spoke with, they were gonna pull just our average, because we do automatic withdrawals in 15. They're
Yeah,
gonna pull our average utility bill until we figure this out, so I did appreciate that. So whatever, our actual bill is not average, whatever's determined, I'm willing to pay, just not the additional 40,000 gallons.
understand.
And then that affects us the sewer too.
Yeah, the sewer was up from about $60, $70 a month to about 260. So-
The sewer's based off their water usage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll, we've got a consensus next board meeting, we'll, as long as you have that form filed,
I'll turn it in tomorrow.
we'll make the, recommendation. So do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So trustee Churchill, seconded by Mr. Packelhofer.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for the trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. I really appreciate him. Unbelievable guy.
Good luck with the new one.
Oh, it's a boy though.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
When's it due?
I'm not supposed to cheer that much, but.
When's it due?
It's a boy.
When's it due?
March 29th. My daughter's birthday is March 24th, so it'll probably be on the 24th, and March is just gonna be a great month for me
Yeah.
for the rest of my life.
Kind of planning the parties.
Well, like I told my wife, our anniversary, 2 kids, same month. My birthday's right before it, Christmas right before that, so pretty much we make money for 9 months just to spend it in 3 months. So.
Sure.
Yes, you do. Understand.
Thank you guys, I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Right.
good night.
Did you
Yep.
say the motion was to waive,
Motion was to, make a recommendation to the board
I'll make a recommendation, okay.
to grant his exception for the, leak adjustment.
Grant his what now?
Exception for the leak adjustment.
Accept his, acceptance?
The exception
Oh, grant his exception,
for the leak adjustment,
okay.
and he'll file that form.
Yes. Let us bring it in here tomorrow?
Just call me tomorrow and we'll get it set up.
Awesome, thanks, Dustin. Thank you guys.
Thank you,
So does that go to the board, the village board, or this,
village board.
and that'll be at the next meeting?
Correct. Yep. When we do the, utility commission, update, we'll say that.
So you'll fill, McCarthy in on that?
Yes. Yep. Okay, next in line, first one would be, there was a violation detail, the EPA, the South Sangamon Water Commission, for the drinking water, it failed, it was a lead violation. Dustin, can you explain?
Sure.
This is a violation of SSWC, not the village, but the tests are run in the village, so.
I called the operator, Stephen Biven, at the water plant today, and he said that after you do your lead copper samples, you get them back, send them to the lab. After the lab, they send you results. You have a paper to fill out for the EPA, and you have a certain timeline you have to meet. They did not meet that timeline, so there's a violation. Isn't that there's a bad test, it's that the paperwork wasn't in on time.
has the test been performed though, and has the test results been uploaded, or?
I don't think they're uploaded yet, but, I can get those from them if you guys would like to see them. I can email them to you.
If you could.
Yeah, and I can
Just
kinda
so-
explain what's,
And we need to get your email. I think we have your email.
My question, Dustin, this isn't the first time that this has occurred on a test where they've had a violation. Why does this keep occurring? I mean, you may not know the answer to that, that's a question I have for SSW. Why does this keep occurring?
correct, and it's on the operator, so whoever's in charge, the operator in charge, it's their job to make sure that's done.
And this is their second one in
I
a
think they
year.
got one last year and then one
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, and it's been, last year they took it from the wrong address.
Correct.
This time they didn't do it timely.
When was that deadline?
You know when the deadline was?
Is it September? I think it's.
Well, they're on the same as we are, so July would have been the deadline, I think, I think you had to have the paper in, we had to have ours in by July 10th.
And the violation notice was issued 10/8.
Okay.
Compliance period begin date 9/29, violation period begin date 9/29.
And then they, I assume, receive something notifying them.
Oh, yeah. You get a violation, you get a letter from the EPA.
Did they notify us?
I just found out today, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
Right.
So they,
Where's Mr. Bloom at?
So.
That's the $1 million
We'll
question.
discuss that. We'll discuss it. But so for here, you were never notified until today.
Correct.
And Pat was unaware of it when I talked to him today about it.
Yeah. He's the one that told me.
Yeah, he said he'd get you on. I appreciate you looking into it.
Hey, no problem, no problem.
So we need to have, these communications have to be made to us and to Dustin.
Yeah,
He's our water guy.
right,
He should know before any of us know.
yes.
We shouldn't find out through Facebook posts. And I know, somebody probably just going out to the EPA site and checking it
Yeah.
all the time. But that's embarrassing as a village for us to get notified that way. And you haven't even been told.
Correct.
So,
But I think we all know this has been an ongoing problem with SSWC for a long time, not notifying the village of what's going on and a violation. Who's holding the people at SSWC accountable? Who's holding that individual accountable when they screw up? I mean, this is a violation. It looks bad, There's enough people out there that have, I don't wanna say paranoia, but, they've followed this water down here since a long time ago. They're wary of anything like this. And when you see that the SSWC is in violation, what do you think of? Oh, there's lead, there's copper in our drinking water. When in actuality is, they didn't get the paperwork in on time. To me, that's inexcusable. I was in management for, 20 plus years of my 31 years in state government. And something like this happens, I'm pulling somebody in my office and say, what happened? Why wasn't this? And if it's the second time, I just said, that's inexcusable, it's not gonna happen again. You gotta hold these people accountable.
so last time we met, we asked Pat to tell us what kind of legal, recourse we had because of the chloramines.
Correct.
What can we do to make this, so maybe we add this to the list too, communication wise.
There was several things. What were you about to say?
I was just gonna say that I went to their last meeting, and I don't remember exactly, I was trying to pull their minutes, from the last meeting, but there was also discussion from, I think it was during the operating report, and they said that they missed some other deadline, and the trustees were upset that they missed this deadline, or something else that they hadn't filed with the state. So it seems to be maybe a recurring problem, that they're missing deadlines.
Are the chloramines, have they switched to the chloramines yet?
We'll discuss it. It's coming up, it's next. So I would say that after this meeting, I'll send an email to Pat to ask Jeff to look into what are our recourse for this and for the chloramine both, and get an answer to see what we can look at legally, and go from there.
It's Groundhog Day.
It is.
Yeah.
So Dan, get very used to this, because this is what we have seen. So, on the last front,
Chloramines?
We asked Mr. Bloom to be here. You got this email? Here you guys go. Mr. Bloom said, I will be in Tulsa for work and won't get back in time. Regarding the Water Commission, we have AHC on site later this week. The plan to finalize calibration of the ammonia feed system, improve communication to New Berlin and New Berlin booster pump station. Bring all that communication back to the commission instead of routing through the Village of Chatham's SCADA system. We will also be working on monitoring rights with New Berlin Water Department staff for the SCADA system. He'll be meeting with Mike Southworth to review the 2 refinancing plans for the outstanding bonds. He'll be selecting a plan for our next meeting and moving forward with it. The term for the payoff will remain the same. Payments will level out and be reduced. We'll no longer have to ramp up. We'll no longer have a ramp that requires rate increases every couple of years, which is a good news. If you see any good news in this. The proposed plans will save us $4 million over the life of the debt. We continue to work on water purchase agreement with CWLP for the commission, so they still don't have an agreement with CWLP.
They need chloramine, right?
Yeah.
Do what?
It's probably because of the chloramine.
We're also looking into
Yeah.
pressure sustaining valve with CWLP that will allow for pressure maintenance on EJ water in the event the plant goes down. The pigging station is installed, and once water usage drops off for the year, we'll pig the well lines. Well maintenance will recommence in the early spring with contractual deadlines to keep work in periods of low demand. Apart from the well work, the plant will be status quo from minimal upkeep and maintenance. So, Dan, for your edification, we've been trying to get chloramines, which will make us compatible with Springfield for well over a year now.
2 years.
Might be 2
2
years.
years,
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah, at least.
Coming up on 2 years at least, and they keep saying, yep, soon. And we were guaranteed last winter, it would definitely be by spring when we have increased water usage, and we still don't have it. So this is an issue. That's why we're asking for legal guidance. It seems like they don't care because we really have no say.
That's how I feel. I'm frustrated with
Yeah. So we're gonna try to get you some say,
it. I appreciate it.
legally, however we can do it.
Yeah.
And if worse comes to worse, we'll look at other solutions or other things. But this just isn't acceptable. I know there's not many people that wanna step up and do a volunteer job out there and be our commissioner, so, you know, with Lee, it's kinda, but
But he
we've
took
been
the
trying to
job,
get him
so
to-
he should be,
Yeah.
you know.
And we've been trying to get him to this meeting for the last 3 meetings. And, so maybe the next one, we'll find out his schedule, and we'll say, you name it, and we'll schedule the meeting. And hopefully at that meeting, he can tell us that he's good. You're good through the winter, you don't umpire or referee anything? How's your schedule in the winter?
Good.
All right, so do you have any time where you go to Washington or where you're out, if they're in session or anything? Good. So, that'll be the other thing I put in the email to Pat, is to get Lee's schedule and see when he can be here, and then he can answer direct questions. We've gotta figure something out. We can't just keep going down this road, and Dustin can't find out about a complaint after it's already been filed, after it's way done.
I agree.
Right.
You shouldn't be in that position.
Especially if it's more serious, we need to know immediately.
Well, you need to be able to answer the question. I
Yeah.
mean, so if
I
that,
just found out today. I
Yeah.
promise you.
Yeah.
But we all,
What had,
we all know this has been going on for years. This is
Yeah.
nothing new.
yeah, it is,
It's time to hold them accountable for their actions.
agree.
It's just like a child. If you don't hold them accountable for their actions, they're gonna continue to do it.
they're gonna push the boundary.
Yep.
That's exactly right. Looking at this, it looks, payments reduced, but my question is, is that pushing it off further?
No, it says it's the same time frame. The thing is that it's not clear, and I'd like to ask Lee.
Financing.
Well, what's not clear is it said it won't have us doing rate increases the next couple of years.
That's,
What
yeah.
about after that?
Well, that's my question.
Yeah.
Is there, are we pushing the can down the road
Yeah,
so that, you
but
know,
that would be nice for Lee to be here to answer.
Well, and what bonds are they retiring?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well,
there's a bunch that are,
There's 4 of them. There's the great big one, that's what,
well,
close to 60 million.
probably.
And then there's 3 little ones, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken. I mean, I've got all of that at
Yeah,
home.
we do.
but that'll be a question we ask Lee. He should be able to tell us what bonds are expiring.
And what kind of interest rate, because the guy that got this bond stuff all together is the same guy who's doing this. And I don't trust him, to be perfectly honest with you.
There's definitely.
There's some shady deals that were done on the original ones.
And he'll definitely make fees on this. I mean, there's,
Oh,
he's not doing it for free.
no. His fees are probably 10 to 15%.
But if it saves you $4 million over the time, you could make it a reasonable, I mean.
But you'd wanna look at the interest rates.
And you want to look at the timeline that they're extending it to so your kids can pay for this.
Correct.
Because you're paying now, but the future is who is going to pay even as much or more because it just continues to skyrocket.
The term for the payoff will remain the same. So the
The
length
years.
of time, yeah, that'll remain the
It
same.
seems like there's some that's
Well,
like
there's-
10 years.
There's
that's-
some that are, I
Yeah,
think there
I
were
can't
some that were like
remember.
5 years, some that were 7 years. And
I remember when you presented that a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've heard that. I remember what you're talking about. I just can't remember
So
all the numbers.
we'll ask Lee when he is available to bring that information.
Well, and I think a couple of them were also, fixed to the prime rate. If the prime rate
Went up, then
went
they
up,
went up.
then they
Yeah.
went up. So
Yeah.
and the prime rate has gone up. So my assumption is that the rate of interest has gone up.
well, it went down recently.
And I think it was capped at what, 7%? It couldn't go any higher.
Yeah,
There
there's
was
a cap on it.
that it couldn't go any higher than 7%.
Well, and hopefully the new deal has a cap as well.
Yeah, again, we need Lee here to
But
answer
we'll have
all
him
the
come and
particulars.
answer it.
Yeah.
And as far as what the gentleman will make off of that should be known as well, because that's public money.
Yeah.
That's our money that he's getting, so, that's something that we need to look into as well, to make sure that it's not an exorbitant amount.
When you talk $1 million deals, you're not talking 10
I
cents.
know, Darlene.
That's the problem. I mean, if they save this much, how much is this much costing to really say this is what you save?
Well, I think if you're saying you're saving that, it would include those costs.
For sure.
Should be a net savings. Well,
For
that's the
sure.
question we'll ask.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't trust that either, because this guy,
What I'm getting.
See, the problem with the bonds right now is that they're all coming due with the principal and the interest.
Right.
That's our problem now.
Yeah.
We're coming into that.
And that's what trustee
And-
Circle has continuously brought up, that it's gonna ramp up. And
Yeah,
those
because
increases are gonna be.
for 5 years, they paid no principal whatsoever. They
yeah.
paid nothing but interest. But
Right.
now I think they're to
Yes.
the point
Yes,
where they're paying principal and interest,
Right,
and it's doubled what they have to pay now.
right,
right.
And all this was presented to the board a long time ago. I
right.
was present during their presentation before the board,
Right.
so this is nothing.
So I don't know what the terms of this refinancing are.
So I know
Right.
November's kinda crazy, just holiday wise and stuff like that. So we'll try to get him back here in November. If he can make a day, I'll try to get Pat to lock him in this week, so I can get you guys plenty enough notice and see if it works for your schedules.
I won't be back in town till November 6th,
Okay,
so
anything after November?
anytime after November 6th.
And you might have to classify that as a special meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, we may.
Okay,
We will, because we're normally every year. And then, we'll go from there. Any other comments?
do you want our records of the bonds?
I wouldn't mind them. I'll share.
I wouldn't mind seeing them again, Darrell.
I wouldn't mind, I'll share them with the group.
I probably have them buried at home,
Yeah.
I have a copy of them somewhere.
Oh, I've got
Dan
it all
wants
in
some light
books.
reading.
Yeah,
Well, and at one time, Jewel went to somebody
Yeah,
and about buying them out, the village buying them out, and how long it would take to, and our rates would not,
We don't want to own that plant.
no, well, we,
Well,
it was
but-
our way to get out of it,
Right.
right.
to give them the money, I guess. How did she do that? Do you remember that, Dustin?
well, it was a certain dollar amount on our utility bill each month to pay the 30 million, we'll say the $30 million loan
Right.
that is now exorbitant. But anyway, it was X amount of dollars to pay that, and then whatever City Water, Light, and Power charged us. But when that was all figured, it was not even what we are paying now.
Right.
Yeah. She took it to some guy and
Well, there's somebody that she knows that
That-
figured it all out for us.
analyzed it
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah. But now, here they're going to refinance these bonds, and, I see probably, when it comes to refinancing, all you're doing is prolonging the cost. I mean, even though it says it's gonna save $4 million, you're still prolonging that end of the tunnel.
Well, it says the term is the same. So the time should
Well,
stay
we
the
wanna
same.
see that, don't we?
I would
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so would I.
Me too.
But that's what he said. So we'll look to get Lee here in November at some point.
And their meeting is tonight, isn't it? It's the third Monday of the month. Is this the third Monday of the month?
Yeah, but he's not there. He's in Tulsa.
Well, I didn't look on their site to see if they had a meeting tonight. I knew I wasn't gonna drive out there.
So it's
so.
next week.
Yeah, it should be next Monday.
I
Well,
was
they have
just
a meeting every
concerned
month.
about that they failed the lead report. That concerns me because my husband died of lung cancer from exposure to lead.
No, lead is definitely
So
not,
that
when you see that on the
makes me a
report.
little nervous.
Dustin, you guys do the same tests that they do, don't you? Every
Actually,
month?
the residents do those tests. We actually just drop them off with instructions and they do the test.
Okay, but the village does.
Correct.
I mean, granted, like you said, the, individuals do it and you check it, but the village has never been in violation, has it?
Of lead copper?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we've never been over the limit. And actually, what people don't understand is you're not testing how much lead and copper are in the water. You're testing how much that leaches from your plumbing in your house, not from our pipes, the plumbing in your house, into the water when it sits there for a certain amount of time. That's what you're testing, is how corrosive the water is to your plumbing. So the more lead pipes you have, and the more copper you have, the higher numbers you could have, the longer that water sits there. So if you've been on vacation for 2 weeks, you want to run the water.
Oh, I was gone for a month. So
Yeah.
trust me, I ran the water.
Yeah, so, and that's what people don't understand. They think that there's lead coming from the plant. That is not happening. And South Sangamon has all plastic water mains, so there's no lead, there's no copper until it gets to the plumbing and sits there, and that leaches into the water.
Right. And you have some of these older houses that could still have some lead piping.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm
Schools
sure.
have old water faucets. That's why they're really working hard on all this new testing, so they can get that stuff changed out.
Yeah, because the faucets, that's a big contributor to it, is the faucets too.
You're correct.
If your faucets like from 1997 or
Yep.
98 or earlier.
About 10 years ago, when we started buying water parts for like water taps and everything, they have to have the no lead symbol on the side of them. So before they had lead in kind of the paint coatings of the brass, and now
Right.
they don't. So they have an NL on them, and they have to have that now. We cannot buy the old ones. So
Good.
yeah,
Thank you, Dustin.
You're welcome.
So we'll look to get, Lee here in November. I apologize for having another meeting, but we need him to answer.
If we can
some
get him
stuff.
here, that's great.
Any other questions, business? Motion to adjourn?
So are you sure that they're not voting on that loan transition tonight? I mean, you're sure there's no meeting tonight?
So
There's no
tonight's-
meeting tonight.
Tonight's the second Monday of the month. It's next Monday will be the third Monday of the month.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the second Monday.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize.
Yep.
Since Dustin's here, Dustin, what's the status on the ground storage tank?
With the pump out there?
No, the discoloration of the paint
Oh,
job.
we just had it
Yeah,
cleaned off.
it was at the village board meeting. There was so it's mold.
Mold and mildew, yeah.
And we'll have to wash it off every year. It'll be a yearly maintenance.
Didn't they just do it though?
No, they just
No.
painted it about 2 years ago.
No, the pressure washing or whatever,
Oh,
however they
no.
did it.
And when they were here painting the elevated tank, they told us that that one sweats a lot out there. And you have the lake, and basically the north side of it just gets covered in that green mildew. So they had to go on top. They washed everything on top and down the sides. We had
And
seven-
you've gone out there and looked at it?
Yeah, I'm going to let them in every day. This Petersburg Power Washing came out and washed it for us.
And I drove by and you could tell a difference. And also the sun doesn't hit it as well as like the elevated.
Correct.
So it makes sense because they reported on that at the village board
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, Jim, in his engineering update, what he said is because it's well water, it's colder, and it'll sweat more when it gets in those tanks. If it was lake water, it'd be warmer and it wouldn't sweat as much. So he's like, you can tell the communities that have well feeds because their tanks will usually have a ring around the bottom of them. And he goes, the ground storage tank, not getting the exposure to sun and all that, it's gonna be a yearly maintenance thing for that. He goes, the elevated tank, we may not notice for a while, it may not be very
Well,
often.
it will happen though. We'll
It'll
have to have
happen,
that
but
cleaned
it won't
too.
be as often.
Yeah,
as
he
the
thought it
ground
would take him more than a couple of years for the elevated, but that one might be yearly or every year and a half.
storage. Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on it as it gets dirty, then we'll call the company in to have them clean it, so.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was answered by in the updates last week.
Well, no, I heard that last week,
Yeah,
but I assumed that it had already been done. I mean, it had been done last week. I don't know.
They did, it was last week. They finished up Friday. We actually they started the installation of the new booster pump today, so that's pretty cool.
okay,
So that's going in today. Vandivator Engineering is installing that, and once we complete that, we'll have 2 booster pumps, and our capabilities to push water into town will pretty much double, and we had to meet EPA demand, or, requirements on that, and what that was is if your main pump went down, is can you pump enough water for your daily average, and we could not. So that was why we decided to look into that and get that new pump.
Oh, I thought that was to put the water to New Berlin, because I understood that now New Berlin doesn't have to go through Chatham for its water, I thought.
No, they do, and New Berlin has their own pumps. So SSWC owns a pump station between us and New Berlin, and they have their own pumps that we have nothing to do with. So our meter is before that station.
Oh, so ours is before that?
Yeah, so we do push New Berlin's water through our town with our water, and then it goes out to their pump and then continues on out to New Berlin. So-
Oh, and that
so you are
has
correct.
nothing to
All-
do with us?
All of their water does go through our pump, correct,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.